Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. Can you believe it's been over 2 years since I bought my first Commodore PET, that blue 2001 that was crushed. In fact, that's it there, still working, I'm pleased to say. Just shortly after buying that one, I bought a couple more, and this is one of them here, a 4016. Unfortunately, this one's completely dead, and I haven't actually done anything to it since I bought it. I did a couple of bits, but I think it's time now to do another restoration video. First of all, let's have a quick look at me opening this thing up. So I bought another PET, hopefully it's okay, so let's open it up and check it out and see what we've got. This model here, the 4016, was actually sold to me as non-working. Apparently it worked for a short while before he sold it, then it just died. Overall it's in pretty good shape. And it's got quite a low serial number, 880, if that's anything to go by. My initial thoughts were perhaps it's a bad capacitor, the reefer cap, at the back there they have on these, but upon further inspection it doesn't actually have one. So I was at a bit of a loss actually at this point. I could hear the transformer humming. I know the tube worked okay because I tried another board on it, but the motherboard itself seems to be completely dead. So in today's video we're going to take a closer look at this computer and start doing some fault finding. My knowledge now has increased slightly since 2 years ago, so fingers crossed we're about to get this machine going. I've decided to make this into a documentary for myself and maybe other people out there that have a PET with similar problems. So this is not a how-to video, it's simply, as I said, a documentary recording the process of me hopefully getting this machine working. Perhaps some of what we do here in this video will help somebody else out there with similar problems. So for that and hopefully more, please stay tuned. So at first glance, looking at the board inside this computer, everything looked quite normal, and then I noticed a sticker on the side saying 4032, and then I realised that all of the RAM positions that were empty for a 4016 had been filled. So basically it's had the memory upgrade to 32K by the looks of things. Model number of the board is a 8032080. I guess the 80 is indicating it's an 80 column machine, and also seeing as it has a larger screen. Looking at the ROMs, I thought there was two missing at first. But upon further research I realised that positions 11 and 12 are actually spare sockets for other upgrades. One of the first things I did on those initial tests 2 years ago was insert my Tynemouth ROM RAM board. What this does is you can select whether to replace the RAM or the ROM or both for testing purposes, and even with this in place I still got absolutely nothing. So after doing a bit more research I found out that this series of Commodore PETs actually has a custom chip for the CRT controller. I think the 2001 PET had a bunch of different logic chips to allow that to happen, but on this series it was the custom chip. So I thought to myself, I'll get a 6545, we'll try that, because it's just a case of unplugging it and popping a new one in. But unfortunately I still got absolutely nothing. So at this point I gave up. I lost interest. And then I left it for a couple of years, and here we are today, continuing on with things. And then just recently, this year, I bought myself an infrared camera to aid fault finding. And I thought to myself, let's have another look at this Commodore PET. And one thing I didn't mention before was I'd already tested the voltages on the power transistors on the left hand side there. They seemed to be all good, but there didn't seem to be any power getting to the rest of the board. And then I had a look at the small voltage regulator at the bottom left there, and it didn't seem to be outputting anything. I wasn't sure if I was measuring it correctly. And then I thought to myself, let's get that infrared camera out and have a look at the board and see if anything's actually warming up. And to my surprise I could see the transistors were actually heating up, but the rest of the board wasn't. So everything on the left hand side, power transistor wise, was warm looking, as in showing heat. I thought I'd filmed that part actually, but I don't seem to be able to find the footage. And then I had a NOP adapter, a NOP tester, which I popped into the CPU socket because I thought that's got an LED light on it. Let's see if we get anything with that. And still there was nothing. So with that in mind I could see that there was no power getting to the rest of the board. So maybe it was a bad voltage regulator or a crack in the board somewhere. And then I thought to myself, let's check out that socket there where the power comes into the board, see if there's any bad connections on it. And sure enough, as I was whipping it around, the NOP LED activity light started flickering, and then it went off again. I thought, my God, I can't believe it. It's going to be as simple as this, as a bad connection. So after unplugging and plugging this in a few times and having a look at the connections, I couldn't see anything physically wrong with it. No dry joints, pins are all clean. Popped it back on, and here we are. The knob adapter is now flickering, showing some CPU activity. And I even got the chirp sound. In fact, it made me jump out of my skin because I'd never heard it before. But unfortunately, there was still nothing on the screen. So I popped the infrared camera back out, and pleased to say I found the footage for this. And here it is, lit up like a Christmas tree. You can quite clearly see now that the ICs on the right hand side of the board are actually warming up. So this is good news. I'm getting a little bit further. But like I mentioned before, there's still nothing on the screen. Before I carry on any further with this, I've decided to make a reset switch, because I'm going to be turning this computer on and off quite a lot doing restarts, and of course it doesn't do the tube any good, or the circuitry for the tube itself. I saved some old cables here from a washing machine that I scrapped recently, and I used a little momentary switch along with a, I think it was an 800 ohm resistor. You've probably spotted this on the board already actually in the previous video footage, because obviously I filmed this after the event. You just need to attach the resistor side of the cable to pin 2 of the 555 timer. Let's take a closer look at that so you can see what I mean on these schematics. And there you have it, UD16 LM555 timer, and pin 2 is on the bottom left on the schematic. Looking at the chip itself with the notch at the top, we count down from the left, 1, 2, and it's the second pin down. And then you just need to solder on the other cable to an earth point somewhere on the motherboard. I chose capacitor C40 on its negative side. While I've got the PCB out, I thought we'd take a closer look at it. At first glance, all looks quite good. All the chips look like they're in order in the correct places. Sometimes you can buy these things and people have already been messing around with them, and chips are in the wrong place. I did notice some corrosion on some of those small logic chips. Hopefully none of them have been affected with this. Turning the board over and having a look underneath, the first thing that pops out is all the flux. It looks like some of the EPROM sockets have been replaced, along with some of the larger ones as well. And you can see all the flux on the new memory upgrade it's had at some time in its life. It's quite possible there are some dry joints on some of those memory upgrades there, and this could actually be a contributing factor to some of its problems, along with those previously replaced sockets. So the next thing to do is to have a look at why we're getting absolutely nothing on the display. I know the CRT is working, because like I said before, I've already tested it on another PET board. So I think the first thing to have a look at is the video RAM. On this particular model PET, the video RAM is located at UC4 and UC5. There are just 2 chips. These are static RAM and are just 1 kilobyte each. And luckily they are still quite readily available on eBay, unlike the Commodore PET 2001 RAM model 6550, which is quite hard to get hold of now and expensive. Unfortunately on my board here they're not in sockets. In fact I don't think I've seen any other examples that are. It's only when other people have replaced them they tend to put them in sockets so they can be swapped out at a later date if necessary. So what I'm going to do is piggyback these by placing the new chip on top of the old one and making sure there's a good contact. This is the way I'm going to test them to see which one's faulty. I gave all the legs on the 2 ICs on the board a good clean with a fiberglass pen to make sure they were making a good contact, and I popped them both on and turned the machine on, and here you go. I now have something up on the screen. Not quite what I want to see, but it's better than nothing. In fact, this is the first bit of life I've seen on the screen from this board on this PET. I tried one chip at a time that was piggybacked to see if either of the chips worked, but it turns out both were faulty, because I think this was the second image that I got, though I can't be sure because I got so excited at the time. I can't remember the timeline of the events. And then I remembered that I have a Commodore PET 3016, and I thought, I wonder if this has got the same character set in it, and sure enough it did. So I prized that out, popped it into this PET to test it further to see if it is the actual character ROM that's playing up, and sure enough it is. Look at what I've got on the screen now. Certainly a lot more than I had before. I repeated the same test again with removing one of the video RAMs that I piggybacked and trying the opposite one. And this time you can see all the @ symbols across the screen there, and you can almost see or make out the Commodore splash screen at the top there, though it was a bit jumbled up. So the next thing to do then is to swap these 2 video RAM chips out and put some sockets in place, so we'll do that next. Now I do have a soldering station, a desoldering station to remove things like this, but I'm not very good at it. I'm very heavy-handed. So what I do is I snip the old chips out. Some people don't agree with this, I know, but this works for me. I know these are both faulty, I tested them, so there's no loss here really, and it reduces the risk of damaging the board, the PCB itself, because at the end of the day that's probably the most valuable thing here really. I don't want to lift any traces or lift up any pads. So I'm going to snip them out and then I'm going to remove each leg individually with a pair of tweezers, and you'll see just how easy it is. Just going to use a fiberglass pen here again to clean some points of contact where I'm going to be touching it with a soldering iron or near there, just to help it take to it better. Just going to add a little bit of flux to help the process even further. The earth pad there has got the most contact, so it takes a little bit longer to heat that up to get that first one out. And there you go, you can see just how swift that is. I'm trying to heat the board up for the least amount of time possible, because if you heat it up too long, in my experience, those traces start to lift and it just ruins your day. I guess I'll speed that up now because you'll probably get bored watching it. And of course there's always one or two that are a little bit stubborn. Just adding a little bit more flux here to aid the removal of these last two on this side. And now it's time to remove the next one, or the next lot of pins should I say. It's going to give the iron a bit of a clean there because it soon gets dirty. And here we are, here's the back of the board on the opposite side. Time to remove the rest of the solder now from those wires, or the holes should I say, whichever they're called. I'm just going to use a mechanical solder pump for this, just going to heat it up. May add a bit more solder to them if I need it, and I'll just suck them out with the mechanical one. Like I said before, I've got the electric one, but it's just I'm a little bit too heavy handed with it, and sometimes it can take just as long. And there you go, that's all the holes cleared out. Took me about 10 minutes that did actually, and there's always a couple again that just didn't want to clear. So it's time to give those areas a good clean now and get the new sockets in place. Then we'll solder those in and pop the new chips in and see if it's still working. And of course there was just one more pin giving me a little bit of trouble, so I had to clear that a bit further. Just going to bend a couple of the legs over to hold those in place. I know some people use blue tack or tape, but this is the way that I was taught when I worked in a factory all those years ago. And now for the really satisfying part, inserting those new ICs. So the new video RAM is now fitted, and when I turn the computer back on now, with the old EPROM back in place, I get a big green square on the screen with just a couple of cursors missing. So I think that EPROM that was in there already for the character set is actually completely died now. I'm not getting anything at all out of it. So going forward for this pet, I'm going to need a new character set for this. I don't want to carry on using the one for my 3016 because I still use that one. So I thought to myself, I have one of those old Willem e-programmers knocking about somewhere. So I pulled it out to have a look at it. Never actually used it before. I thought I'll give this a go. Try and make myself a character set rather than buying another one. Because obviously it would be very handy to have something like this going forward, having old computers, because then you can program your own EPROMs. And of course this will be very good for helping in troubleshooting, even though I do have that time with Pet RAM ROM board. It's a very good advantage to be able to swap out individual ROMs. Now this version of Willem EPROM programmer uses a parallel port, so I had to dig out one of my old XP machines to use this. Found some software for it, installed it, had some blank EPROMs because I bought some of those a while ago now, along with an eraser. Set it all up, but I just couldn't seem to get it to work. I spent quite a long time on this actually. In fact, I spent nearly 2 days on it overall, trying to learn how to figure out how to use this thing. But no matter what I tried, I just kept on getting errors. One of the things I didn't realise at the time was some of my older EPROMs require 21 volts in order to burn the program onto them. So I ordered some newer versions for the late 80s, I think it was, that only needed 12.5 volts, and I still had the same problems. So I went back to the older EPROMs, adjusted the voltage input switches there on the right hand side, put in just over 21 volts from my bench power supply, and still I got errors. No matter how many times I raised the EPROMs, they kept on saying they had data on them, that they weren't blank. So for now I thought to myself, rather than wasting any more time on this Willem EPROM programmer, I'll get myself one of the newer ones. But for now, until that came, I thought I'll just get a character set ordered so we can move forward with this project. So let's see where I am now with this Commodore Pet. So using its own ROMs and the new video chips and the new character set, this is what I get on the screen. Just a couple of small blocks there and some semicolons I think it is at the top there, and that's it. So let's have a look now, switch things over to the timeth board and see what we get with that, using the ROMs on the timeth board along with the RAM. Because the RAM on this board is also faulty and it will only do anything with the timeth RAM switched on. Just going to dim the lights down for this bit, and here we go, looking a lot healthier but still not quite right, only showing 17k of RAM, and they garbled information on the screen there for the splash screen, and when I press the keys on the keyboard they're not matching up to what they should be showing on the screen. So things still aren't quite right, but I've certainly come along quite a way since I first got this pet. So just to recap, this screen you're seeing here, I'm sorry it's a little bit out of focus, is using the timeth RAM ROM board for the RAM and the ROMs, and all the switches are on. But when I put the last switch, number 5, to the off position, things seem to look a little bit better again. The keyboard seems to display the letters slightly better, but it's put them on the screen twice, and I'm now getting a syntax error message as well, which it wasn't doing before when all the switches were on the timeth board. One other thing I noticed as well with that last switch being in the off position, if I do a reset using my reset switch, everything still works fine. But if I do a hard reset by turning the power off at the back, then back on again, I only get a blank screen with that last switch in the off position on the timeth board. So they all have to be in the on position for the computer to actually boot again. And one thing else to note as well, there's no chirping sound when I do a soft reset with switch number 5 in the off position on the timeth board. Here's how the screens look different compared to each other, with the timer switch in the on position on 5 on the left, and on the right hand side there, switch position 5 is switched off. And like I mentioned before, with the switch off, I don't get a chirping sound on the boot up. Well, there you have it. I think that's about the end of part 1 for this video. I think it's gone on quite long enough. I'm quite pleased with how far I've gotten with this actually. I've done it all on my own so far, but I think going forward I'm going to need help getting it working further. So if anyone in the community knows what next steps I should be taking with this, please let me know in the comments. things to try, or maybe it's something quite obvious. It could just be one particular chip that needs replacing or testing. The RAM on this isn't working either, but I've been using the timeless RAM, but even that's only showing 17K when it should be showing 32K, and I know there are problems with the onboard ROMs on this, but for now we just need to get it working off the timeless board, and then we can look at those things later on. I have got myself a new EPROM reader writer, so again I'll be making videos about that in the near future. But like I said, if anybody can point me in the right direction and where to go next with this, the next steps, please let me know in the comments. Well, I guess that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching that with me, and hopefully it will help somebody else out there in the future. And it's a good little documentary for myself to know where I've gotten with this computer and what I've done with it while I look back in years to come. Well, I guess that just leaves me to say, as always, thanks for watching, and until the next video, I'll be seeing you. And if you did enjoy watching this video, you may want to take a look at some of my other videos on similar themes. I'm always buying something on eBay, some old piece of technology, and trying to repair it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.